Hi friends, here we are in my kitchen today. Today I'm gonna cook for you. I thought I'd make you some chili, okay? And when it gets cold here in the Midwest, when it gets cold, my boys like chili. And so what I'm doing is I'm taking my mom's recipe and I'm gonna make it the way that I make it. I've kind of morphed her recipe to make it my own, and I encourage you to do the same. I'm not gonna give you a solid recipe for you to follow. I'm gonna show you what I put into it. I'm gonna show you what she used to put into it, and you can use it the way that you want. You can put into it what you want or what you have. If you don't have something, I'll show you some alternatives to use. So let's get cooking. Okay, so to start out, we need some kind of ground meat. I use ground turkey. My mom used ground beef. You can even use ground chicken. Whatever kind of ground meat that you like. I'm using ground turkey today. Some diced tomatoes, some just canned diced tomatoes, some chili beans. You can use black beans, you can use navy beans, you can use whatever kind of canned beans that your family prefers. I'm going to use some tomato soup. If you don't have tomato soup on hand, you can use tomato sauce. You can use tomato paste with some water to make it, not so thick. You can even use spaghetti sauce. It doesn't really matter as long as it's a tomato base. There's people that will even use ketchup, and it just gives the chili a little bit more body, so it's not real liquidy. Instead of just adding plain water, we're going to add something a little tomatoey. So whatever you want, there's something tomato based, okay? Some chili powder. Something that I add is some Lowry seasoned salt. That's something my mom didn't use, but my family likes the taste of this, and so I use this. Some Cajun seasoning. That's something else that my mom didn't use. I believe she used some cayenne pepper. My family doesn't really care for cayenne pepper, so we use this instead. Garlic powder. Some celery salt. This is something my mom didn't use as well. She used regular celery. I don't keep celery on hand a lot. My family doesn't eat a whole lot of celery, and it goes bad quickly, I feel, and I haven't found a good way of keeping it fresh or frozen or anything like that. So I use some celery salt. And onion powder. My mom used fresh onions. I'm not a big fan of onions, so I go with the onion powder, so it gives it a little bit of the flavor, but not the texture of the onion. I'm not really fond of that. So I go with this instead, and you can use onions, you can use green peppers. My mom also used green peppers in her chili. You can also, like some people can their tomatoes with green peppers and onions in them. You can also get tomatoes that have added peppers and onions. You can use that. It's, like I said, whatever your little heart desires to put into this chili dish. And then some fresh ground black pepper. I actually have a 4 peppercorn blend in my pepper grinder right now that I'm going to use. So let's get to browning up our meat, and we'll get started cooking. Okay, I'm just going to use kind of a wide, shallow pan. You can use a skillet to brown your meat as well. That most people do that, but this is one less pan because I'm going to use this to start cooking it. So we're just going to get this opened and in the pan. Mine's a little bit frozen yet. And just chop it up a little bit and throw a lid on it so that it starts cooking, especially if it's a little bit frozen like it is now. And we'll come back to that in a minute. What I like to do while my meat is browning is start to get all the lids off of my cans. It's not so hard when there are these flip top cans, but when you got to use a can opener, it can take a while. I use a lot of beans, a lot of tomatoes. This is a double batch for me. because that's what my family likes. You can do 1 pound of ground meat with half this many tomatoes and half as much beans, which is what my mom's recipe called for. But we like to double it up, make a big batch. And it looks like my electric can opener is running out of juice. So I'm gonna have to resort to the old standby. I'm guessing when it was put back on the charger, it didn't get put on correctly. So we'll try to make sure that it's on the charger correctly this time. But yeah, I just like to get all of the cans, all the lids off my cans, so I'm all ready. I can hear my meat starting to cook in there, and we'll check on it in just a second here. Yep. Like I said, this is such a versatile dish, and what I like to do, like this is a double batch, like I told you, of chili, is I will take and put this into cartons. After we eat our first meal out of it, I'll put it in the rest into cartons and freeze them. It freezes very well, and you just take it out whenever you want supper. Usually in the morning, before I go to work, I will think, you know, what are we making for supper tonight? And that's what comes out of the freezer. And chili is perfect for that. Just take it out, I toss it in the sink. When I get home from work, it is usually thawed out, and we've got chili for supper. And don't make a mess in your kitchen, or try not to. Okay, all of our lids are off. Browning up nicely. Now, what my mom used to do is when the meat was about at this stage, when it's about halfway brown, she would put in her onions and her peppers, because then they would get cooked along with the meat and infuse the flavor. What I'm going to do is get a second pot going here. Because the double batch is too much for this one pot. So I will be transferring half of the meat to a second pot and then finishing the cooking process. That's why I like to brown in one pot to begin with and not a skillet, because then I have 3 pots to clean up instead of 2. And it's up to you how chopped up you want your meat. Some people like big chunks of meat in their chili, some people don't. I usually chop it rather fine. Haven't heard any complaints from my boys. They just love chili. Okay, we're gonna get this other pot heated up. So we just about browned. And you notice like this, this is almost completely browned. Ground beef will be darker in color than turkey or chicken. And if you've worked with them, you'll know when it's browned, obviously. And that's that. So I'm going to take this and put about half of it into the other pot. Okay, then we start adding our other ingredients. To each pan, I'm going to add 2 cans of diced tomatoes. You can use stewed tomatoes. Like I said, you can use the tomatoes that have other things added to them, peppers, onions, whatever you want. You can even use like rotel, where they are more of a Mexican type mixture. So there's 4 cans total of tomatoes. I'm going to add 2 cans of beans to each one. Easy, simple recipe, you know, and like I said, make it your own. Most home cooking recipes were simple, easy. Whatever you had on hand is what you used. Try not to make a mess like I just did. And just kind of stir it all in. And like I was telling you before, when halfway through the meat cooking, that's when you want to add any celery, onions, or green peppers, any of the fresh vegetables, so that they get cooked and you don't have severely crunchy vegetables, because they won't cook a whole lot after you add this stuff. They'll just kind of stew. All right, and then we're going to add a can of tomato sauce. Again, if you don't have, tomato soup. If you don't have tomato soup, use tomato sauce. Use some water and tomato paste. Even spaghetti sauce or even pizza sauce. Anything tomato based will really work. In a pinch, ketchup will work. And then they have the big chili cook-offs and stuff. Some people add the most bizarre ingredients to your chili, to their chili. So I wouldn't be afraid to try anything as far as chili goes. Okay, so then I add 3 tablespoons of chili powder to each. You can add more or less to your taste. This is just what I do. Stir that in. We like our chili thick, so I usually don't add much, if any, water at all. Some people like their chili more like of a soup, a thinner consistency, so you could add some water if you want. To me, depending on how much water is in the tomatoes, I may not add any at all, or I may just add a little bit, because like I said, we like our chili pretty thick. get all that chili powder worked in, stirred in. And I'm going to turn up the heat just a little bit because we want this to start simmering so all the flavors mingle together. Then I never measure this. I just add some Cajun seasoning, good amount. And so it's a little different every time. Sometimes if my husband's around, I'll say, you know, here, you know, I'll grab a clean spoon and let him taste it a little bit. Then I'm adding some Lowry's here. I'll just have him taste it and see, oh, what do you think? And he's like, oh, it needs a little bit more Lowry's, or it needs, you know, a little bit more chili powder, or whatever, you know, whatever he thinks. Okay, so that was the Lowry's and the Cajun seasoning. Then I'm going to add some garlic powder. Again, I don't measure. I just throw some in there. And we're going to throw some celery salt in. I like to be liberal with my celery salt because I don't have any celery. The reason I'm using the celery salt is because I don't usually have celery on hand, and I like the flavor that the celery salt gives it. And then a little bit of onion powder since we don't have any onions in it. Like I said, you can omit that if you have the vegetables in there. And I'm just going to stir that up, and then we'll add our pepper. You can use black pepper. You can do like I'm using I have a 4-pepper blend that has a white pepper, a pink pepper. There's a black pepper in there as well, and a green pepper, peppercorn in it. It's just the way it came. But it's a really good mild peppery. It doesn't give you the full black pepper, full-on pepper taste, but it's a really nice, interesting mix. And I can show you what that looks like. So it's just a blend. I hope you can see that of maybe the little peppercorns in there. Maybe not. So I'm just going to grind some fresh ground pepper on there. You can use ground pepper, you can use white pepper, you can use whatever you want. And it's starting to heat up. I can hear it. Then I just cook it until my beans are at the right consistency. If you like your beans softer or more solid than others, it's just up to you, at least until it's hot, and then you can check your beans and see how soft or hard they are. That, you know, again, that's up to you. So I'm going to cover these up and let them simmer. You want them to simmer more than boil. They're gonna bubble a little bit. Like you can see, this one is starting to bubble. And so I'm just going to cover them up and let them bubble for a while. I'm going to leave that one. Turn that one down just a bit, and it just depends. It depends on your pans too. These two pans are a little bit different, so one might get done faster than the other. This one's been heated prior, you know. It just depends. So we'll come back and check on these in just a bit. Okay, come back. It's been bubbling away for a while. I'm gonna just give them a stir. That's pretty much all there is to it. Like I said, you just let them cook until your beans are at the right consistency. Not too hard, not too soft for your tasting. You just fish out a few, cool them off a little bit, and check them out. So then we'll take these off the heat, and then I just like to put them in containers and let them cool completely till they're just maybe warm. You don't want them to cool completely to room temperature, but just till they're just warm, not hot. And then put the lids on, and you can freeze them, or you can eat it, you know, just whatever you want. Like I said, I keep a lot of this in the freezer. for those cold days. You know, when the guys come back from hunting or what have you, it's a great thing to have ready for them when they come back from hunting, or from you, if you hunt, you know, you come back, it's quick and easy. You throw it in the microwave and it's ready in a couple of minutes, and you sit down with some crackers or some Frito chips and eat them up. Okay, so that's my recipe for chili. My mom's morphed chili recipe into my chili recipe. You morph it into your own chili recipe. I hope you enjoyed watching it as much as I enjoyed making it for you. Make sure you hit that notification bell so you know next time I upload some other great recipes or some other sewing ideas for you. And subscribe and like this video if you liked it, and we'll see you next time. Thanks. Bye bye.